My opinion is it's one of the deepest, broadest, most liquid markets globally. And so we're here for many different reasons, but I think the main reason is to establish more business relationships here in Korea. And of course, we're an early stage investor in a lot of different projects that I'd like to see listed here on the Korean exchanges. So among other things, great barbecue, great people. You have to remember, I'm Italian, right? So I grew, I'm from a peninsula just like the Koreans. So we have a lot in common culturally. I didn't change it. So I think it's important for people to understand that even though FTX crashed, I think we had in the portfolio at that time very good assets, very valuable long-term assets. And so unfortunately, when you own things that have 80 vol asset or 100 vol asset, if you look at the way they swing from a market perspective, a great asset, the volatility is not necessarily a measurement of risk as much as it is an opportunity. And so I use that example on stage here. You could have bought Amazon at $7 a share in March and April of 2000. And if you held it for the last 23 years, it was arguably one of the best investments in history. However, you would have had 8 periods of time where you lost 50% of your money. And so for me, I love the assets that we had prior to the FTX debacle. We held those assets through the crash. And of course, those assets, Bitcoin specifically, is probably up 70 or 80% from that bottom. And so I would caution people to be too quick to trade their great assets. In my mind, things like Bitcoin and Ethereum are long-term heirlooms that people should just sit on and think about them over a multiple year period of time. Well, you got to call me. I mean, that's the number one thing, right? You got to figure out a way to call me. So, here's the thing. Like, I remember I started with absolutely nothing. So I grew up in a blue collar family. My parents never went to college. I'm the first person in my family to go to law school. So I am very receptive to people who are self-starters that are knocking on my door. I try to return everybody's phone call. I try to return everybody's email or letter. And I get a lot of them, but I try to do that because I was sending out those letters 35 years ago, and I needed people to return them for me. So I'm trying to return that favor. So do a little bit of sleuthing and be a good detective, figure out how to reach me, and reach out to me, present to me what you have. So I don't really know what he has in his portfolio, but I know him a long time. And so he's focused on two things. He's focused on fame and he's focused on money. And so anything that can give him more fame or more money, he's going to be a part of. And so I think he did this NFT collection. He was able to sell it to sort of the same people that he raises money from for his campaigns. And so my guess is he probably owns, Ethereum-based NFTs related to that. But I don't know really much more than that. But you can ask me more questions about Trump if you want, because I think he's an idiot. I mean, how do you say crazy in Korean? Michota. Trump is Michota. Okay, I mean, come on. I mean, you guys got to know that. I mean, come on. Well, I mean, that's a really good question. So when you broadly, it's going to be things like AI, but I think and this is probably controversial for groups not related to the blockchain, but I actually think the blockchain itself is going to have the biggest impact, even potentially more consequential near term than AI, because if we start to roll out the magnificence of the blockchain, where it's just this wonderful delayering mechanism. And if you think about global economic history, because we don't trust each other, we've always had a third party in our transactions. We have a bank, a clearing bank, or we have the government issuing us our currency. But over the blockchain, we can have bilateral transactions, peer-to-peer transactions, which are secure. And so if you think about the economic innovation that gets unleashed from that, it is consequential and exponential. And so 2 very quick examples. I own a restaurant. If I'm able to avoid the credit card companies, that's a 3% savings on everybody's restaurant bill, which could drop to the bottom line of that restaurant. That's a 20% margin improvement. We have friends in El Salvador. We had several governmental ministers attend our conference in New York last year, they told me that the introduction of Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador is going to lead to potentially a $400 to $500 million savings for the expatriates that live in the United States, sending money back to their family members in El Salvador. So right now, old school traditional finance, they've got to go through something like Western Union or MoneyGram, where the charges could be anywhere from 7 to 10%. A peer-to-peer transfer over the blockchain would save those families, those El Salvadorian citizens and the expats, $500 million a year. So just think about those two micro examples. As we ramp up and the blockchain becomes regulatorily acceptable globally, I think it'll have huge economic efficiencies, huge benefits to the society, huge levels of innovation, because you'll have more money to spend on things like R&D.